Hi, welcome back. So this is a very different style of video. Everyone is talking about what's happening with Amanda Batula and Kyle Cooke with Bravo TV show called Summer House and In the City, which is based in New York, where I'm from. And I just think it's just so interesting because I love this type of video because I'm like, this is such a great opportunity to talk about finance, financial literacy, the law in New York around prenup. I'm not going to comment on all of this. I'm going to bring in an actual matrimonial lawyer to talk about all of the implications that Kyle and Amanda are kind of going through right now, if they get divorced because they're just separated, and what a prenup is, and or you want to call it a marital agreement, like whatever. And I just think it's like such a good conversation to have. Like there's lessons to be learned, and you know what? Like everyone wants to get the tea, and everyone wants to talk about this stuff. And the second that she started like talking about not having a prenup, like I clocked that so fast. And then the fact that they bring things up but then don't follow through. This is going to be such a good conversation. So let's bring in a local New York matrimonial attorney and have a really like eye-opening conversation around the finances and the laws around marital laws. But also I do want to talk to somebody in the venture capital world at some point to understand better the structure of Loverboy. I don't think the papers have been released, so there's very little way to sort of understand the structure other than sort of speculating. And again, I just want to preface, this is not like a gossip video. We're just speculating and discussing from like a real factual standpoint, like what is the real tea behind all of this. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to focus on the facts, like financial facts, like legal facts. The tea we'll leave for Reddit. We'll leave it for you guys in the comments. And then also, there's some other housewives that are going through like insane divorces, and it just makes me think they have no clue how finance works. And so, I don't know, put in the comment below and tell me if you like this type of series because I think it's actually interesting. I love it. I'm sure you guys do. And then, like, we can talk about this stuff more. And instead of like teaching you like how to invest and like blah, 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 we can learn through like learning through other people's mistakes, and then it's more interesting and you figure out a way to make it like more applicable. So anyways, let's start. Before we get started, can you pan the camera down a little bit? I want to see your fit. I love this outfit. Oh my God. It's so cute. You made a tie out of a scarf. It's so pretty. I love it.
I have a friend who gets invited to the Hermes private sale every year, and that is a friendship that I will never never do what Amanda did to Sierra because of that friendship.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning. So Natalie,
Yeah.
can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Natalie Maier. I'm a matrimonial and family law attorney with Shemtab Moss Foreman and Beta, a boutique matrimonial firm here in New York City. And we serve clients just like Kyle Cooke and Amanda Batula.
You know what's so amazing about it is that usually in New York, there's like this like inner, I don't want to say the word gossip, but there's this inner knowing of who people have retained. And as of right now, nobody has retained a lawyer, not Kyle Cooke or Amanda Petula, correct?
So we don't know, the inside scoop, only they know. But what I will say is in New York City, it is an option for a high profile couple like Kyle or Amanda to file for divorce under what's called an anonymous caption, which would mean that nobody knows that it's them. But if they have filed under their own names, which plenty of celebrities do, what I can tell you is that neither one of them has filed for divorce as of today.
So what I thought was like so crazy, and I clocked right away, is that they have no prenup. But what's very interesting is that even the laws in New York with cohabitation are still very strict. So even if they were just cohabitating for 6+ years, there's still laws that would have protected them, right?
So, New York doesn't recognize what's called common law marriage. Even if you cohabitate with a partner, you're not going to um, gain any sort of entitlement to their assets if you're not legally married to them. That's just in the state of New York. Other states do it differently. But the reason that Amanda, or Kyle would have had um, the reason that Amanda or Kyle would have had entitlement to each other's assets is because they've been legally married, not just cohabitating.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, so Summer House airs, you said 2016, right?
Yeah, I can't remember when the show first started, but it
I wrote it
was
down. Hold on. So yeah, I think the show launches 2016.
right.
They are in a relationship prior to the show. During the show, they're each earning their own income. During the show, they fall in love, get engaged, get married on the show. He launches Loverboy at before before they got married. So technically, it's his own. It's like premarital asset, right? They
Yes.
don't have a prenup, but they've been doing a couple of things since the idea of separation has come up. But we don't know if they have like filed for divorce or not.
That's correct. We have no reason to believe that either of them has filed in New York, which is where they live. So I mean that would be where they file.
Okay, so I have so many questions. What are they both going to get out of this divorce? Because a few things happened that seemed out of the ordinary. Kyle in the city, which is also a Bravo TV show, has asked for Amanda for back rent of about 117,000, which I think estimates around 6,500 a month rent, and she paid it. So she is implying something there. I don't know what she's implying, right? And then coinciding with the fact that if she got paid a salary at Loverboy and paid back rent, maybe what she's telling the court is that they were 50-50 all along. And does that make sense? Like that's what I'm thinking as like an average civilian. I'm like, she's paying half of the rent and she's getting a salary, so maybe she doesn't get what it could be worth the valuation of the company, just like what she's doing as a salary. So you clarify all of that.
Yeah, I mean, their rent is a totally separate issue. Assuming that they were both on the lease for whatever apartment they were renting, they're both liable. And most leases in New York are joint and severally liable. So, meaning either one of them could be held 100% accountable for the rent. Um, Now that rent is a marital liability if they signed the lease during the marriage. So the courts could distribute that liability any which way. They could decide that one party is more liable than the other, or even solely liable, or they could decide that the two of them should split the rent. But it is definitely interesting that she seemingly had that money lying around and just wasn't giving Kyle, her monthly share of the rent. I don't know if she was trying to send some sort of a message to him by just paying it up front. She also might be conscious of the fact that he does need money right now. I mean, he has not been quiet on the show about the fact that Loverboy is not doing well and that he is feeling that financial pressure and that liquidity pressure. So maybe that's why she did it. I don't know. But the rent is, a separate issue. And then you bring up her earnings. Both of their earnings during the marriage under New York law and because there's no prenup are marital income. They're marital property. So whatever Kyle's bringing in, whatever Amanda's bringing in, whether that's, a salary, a bonus structure, some sort of contingency structure with the company. We don't really know how she's paid, but both of their incomes during the marriage are marital and a marital asset subject to distribution in the event of a divorce.
Okay, so what's wild about that is that means right now we know that she's with somebody new. Technically, they're not divorced, and they are earning a new income, not just from Summer House, but from in the city. So right now, their dual income from in the city is still considered marital assets, even though she's with someone new.
Yeah, assuming again, like we've seen online, we have no reason to believe that either one of them has actually officially filed for divorce. So those checks for Summer House and in the city that keep coming in, they're still marital until one of them files for divorce officially.
That is bananas. That is okay. So I actually think that none of them, I think that they're both okay. So this video is not meant to be gossip. We just want to educate and understand the legality of prenups and no prenups in New York City for couples. But in a speculative manner, I think that they're both extremely ignorant about finances because they're doing things all backwards. Like they're paying each other back when technically it should be like they should be establishing some sort of, routine or some sort of like rules that they've been following. They are not together, but they're still filming and making money together. And here's an update for you, Natalie. Apparently, Loverboy is doing so well that they are actually sold out now. So now Loverboy is actually doing well.
Is that a result of like people
The
feeling bad for
scandal.
Kyle after the
Yes,
show? I
yes,
mean,
I
hey,
think so, which is benefiting her though.
right. I mean, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And in this case, Kyle was talking about it. He was open about it on the show that it sounds like he took out a personal loan for the business to help the business stay afloat so that he could actually pay his employees to stick around. He took that loan out during the marriage and in his own name. So for Loverboy to now be able to hopefully pay some of that loan off with the money that they're making, that benefits Kyle, that benefits Loverboy, and it benefits Amanda because hopefully the debt is going down and not up.
So, what would be the implication of all of this had they actually had a prenup in New York? And if they don't have a prenup, what type of divorce? What type of state is New York in terms of divorce?
Yeah, so New York is an equitable distribution state. I like to say that New York is not a title state. So all assets acquired during the marriage, regardless of the form in which title is held, are marital assets, meaning income, assets that you purchase, bonuses, stocks, retirement accounts, investment accounts, any sort of asset that you acquire, absent a few categories that are protected, such as inheritances, trusts, other, estate devices. But so that means that absent a prenup, which Kyle and Amanda have been very open, they don't have a prenup. All of their assets acquired during the marriage, regardless of the form in which title is held, are marital assets. And if and when they get a divorce, the court can distribute those assets equitably, not 50-50 automatically. It's not just a mechanical exercise of splitting everything right down the middle. The court can look at a number of equitable factors and they could distribute those assets really in any proportion. 50-50 is kind of in practice the starting point, and then you can move, those numbers around depending on one person's contributions to the marriage and to the assets.
That's so interesting. Now, what about the infidelity? Because they're still married. So if they had a prenup, I mean, it's been proven that they've been together. She's with Wes right now. So,
Right.
or we'll see for how long. But if if she had a prenup and if she doesn't have a prenup, what are the implications of infidelity in a marriage? Does that influence the distribution of the marital assets or has no holding?
Yeah, not really. So New York is what's called a no fault state. It doesn't really matter if someone committed infidelity for purposes of getting the divorce. They're not automatically going to get, a lesser share of the assets just because they cheated. And I mean, it is important to note that both parties have cheated in this case. We've seen Kyle cheat on Amanda publicly in the series, and Amanda has continued to bring that up throughout their marriage. It's been a sticking point for her. And then obviously right now she's in, I guess, what you would call some sort of a relationship with West Wilson, and she's still legally married to Kyle. So there's been infidelity on both sides, but it's not going to automatically affect the distribution of the assets. Now, if one of them were spending money on those affairs, let's say Amanda was buying West a nice watch, or Kyle had bought a girlfriend a diamond necklace, or doing something that, one of them is not supposed to be doing with their marital assets. That's what's called marital dissipation, and that would play out in the divorce context.
No way.
Hmm.
They don't even know this.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that when you're building a marriage with your legal partner, that the money
Right.
that you're acquiring should be used to benefit the two of you and not to third parties that maybe one of you doesn't even know about. So, that goes for any other type of wasteful behavior during the marriage. It could be sports betting, it could be spending money on porn, OnlyFans, like,
Oh my
this generation. Um, so anything that you're gambling your money away that really is money that should be belonging to your marriage and to your partner.
case of choosing between Amanda and Kyle, and you, let's say, were representing Amanda and she was your client, what would you be advising her to do like ASAP, like right now?
I mean, that's a good question. None of us know
None of us
what the
know.
structure of Loverboy is. I don't know, if is she does she have any sort of a partnership interest? Just because they don't have a prenup doesn't mean that Kyle couldn't have secretly given her, a piece of Loverboy during the marriage. We have no idea. Those documents still haven't come to light. Um, but the real thing that Amanda has never really leaned into is she has actively contributed to the success of Loverboy. And I think that Kyle acknowledges that. I think the Bravo community acknowledges that. Like, she is a public figure. She was doing, I think, the marketing or the design or a lot of the,
Yeah.
promotion behind Loverboy. So while Loverboy is inarguably a premarital asset of Kyle's, Amanda really contributed to the success of Loverboy throughout the marriage. And that seems to be something that she doesn't talk about a lot on the show. In fact, I think there was a scene with Paige and Sierra in Old Navy, if I'm not mistaken, where they were like telling Amanda, you need to own your contributions to this business. Like, you really helped him out and helped him grow this business together. The other big question is, does Kyle have any other partners at Loverboy? Is he the sole owner? I know there were investors early on and he gave them, some percentage, I assume, for their investment in the business. Because if we're talking about the share of Loverboy that Amanda may or may not be entitled to, we're only talking about the appreciation on Kyle's share of Loverboy during the marriage. And if Kyle's share of Loverboy is only a certain percentage, you start to see that number get smaller and smaller and smaller, especially if the value of the business is encumbered by debt.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So if he, let's say he has 40% shares, right? This is like pre-dilution. And so then she's entitled to 20%.
At most, she's
Okay.
entitled to, at most, half of the appreciation on Kyle's share of Loverboy that occurred during the marriage. So first you have to figure out, an attorney like me would figure out, what was Loverboy worth on the day that they got married? And what is Loverboy worth now? And that involves figuring out what the actual valuation of the business is, but also what the debt is. And it sounds from Kyle like there might be some significant debt encumbering the business. So first we'd figure out, what that difference in value is, and then we look at that appreciation and whether the appreciation was due to market forces, it's just passive appreciation of the business, or whether it's due to the active appreciation of a spouse like Amanda. And in this case, I would argue that it is due to the active appreciation. It's due, at least in part, to the efforts that Amanda contributed to Loverboy.
You know what that's making me just think? I'm not a massive Bravo reality TV show watcher, but what I've been now that I've been on the Reddits following what's happening with Amanda and Kyle, I'm seeing crazy stories about like Dorit from the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and what she's spending, and this other one, I think it's her name is Alicia from the Real Housewives of Rhode Island, which is a newer one, where she's married with a daughter, no prenup, not even on the deed of the house. So to
She's
circle it
actually
back.
not even married. They're just engaged. They've never gotten married.
Like that, you are so unprotected. Like that is so insane to me.
She actually
Sorry.
just the most recent episode of Real Housewives of Rhode Island, and if you're not watching, get on board because they're great. The most recent episode is Alicia talking about how, because she's not married, she feels completely unprotected in the event that I guess he's her fiance, the father of her child, were to leave her. She essentially has no stake in the business that he owns, no, there are no marital assets being accumulated. So yeah, she talks about how that makes her feel, and how and the other women actually are telling her, like, you need to get your financial ducks in a row and ensure that you're protected. I don't know that it sounds like they truly never even reached the prenup conversation because they never talked about getting married. She has some familial history. Her parents' marriage wasn't successful. I think her dad left when she was early on, so she has some hesitation, it sounds like, about entering into her own marriage. And so she's truly been engaged to the father of her child for, I think, like 9 or 10 years, and there's no even discussion about them getting legally married. And that's why the other girls in the group are kind of waving the red flag and shaking her, because they're saying, you're just in a domestic partnership, if that. And I don't know, what the laws in Rhode Island are, but if we were talking about this exact scenario in New York, she would be entitled to nothing other than child support.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
literally
ouch.
ouch. So are people that uneducated about finance and laws? Because to circle back to Kyle and Amanda, on the show, Kyle was saying how Loverboy was losing all of its valuation and potentially having to lay off people and not taking a salary and doing DJ gigs on the side. So this is on the record saying that the company's valuation has gone down. Its netting, its income has gone down, and therefore, like, he can actually, and I've seen a lot of guys do this, hide his assets and declare a loss. But they're so silly because he's now declaring how much money he is making. So it's like, are they smart or they're not smart? Like, are they like, is she paying him back because she's evading something, or this is like this nonsensical two human beings who are probably without judgment, oblivious to the law or oblivious to financial planning, and are just la la la, like dallying through life and making all sorts of mistakes. And now allegedly the company is doing well. So now she is entitled to something, and just doing it all backwards.
It's hard for me to believe that neither of them are at least consulting with lawyers in the background, just because they haven't filed for divorce. Some couples try to just do everything in the background and they settle. And then basically all you need to do is file a copy of your agreement with the court and get divorced. I mean, we saw, you know, Giselle Bundchen and Tom Brady were able to settle their divorce out of court entirely without the need for any litigation. So maybe that's what Kyle and Amanda are doing here. I think the better bet is that there's so much emotionally being dealt with right now. They're filming in the city. They just filmed the summer house reunion. It's airing tomorrow night. And so there's a lot of like emotion that they're both dealing with. Amanda's, I guess, navigating whatever her relationship status is with West Wilson. Um, so maybe they're not as focused on the actual divorce. We don't know that they're getting a divorce. It is entirely possible that at the end of all of this they reconcile and they stay together. That's not out of the realm of possibility.
No
It's
way.
really
I
not.
didn't think about that.
I
That would be
mean,
so insane.
I think the Bravo sphere has their own thoughts about that, but like, again, neither one of them has actually filed for divorce yet, unless they're just, dealing with everything behind the scenes.
Okay. So for anyone listening that actually wants to get something out of it, not just the tea, like, what are the 2 points to make sure that if they're married, prenup, postnup, if they're talking stages, dating someone, financial consideration, like, what should they know at an early stage regarding prenups and New York laws and things like that?
Yeah. I mean, Amanda has recently been very public saying that she wished she'd signed a prenup. And I think we remember back when, right before they got married, she was very vehemently against a prenup. I think she thought, because as many parties signing prenups do, she thought that Kyle was trying to maybe screw her out of assets that she would be entitled to. But the prenup goes both ways. It protects assets, it also protects you from debt of the other party. And in this case, I think the reason that Amanda is now recently talking about wishing she had gotten a prenup is because she's not protected necessarily from Loverboy's debt or from Kyle's personal debt that he's taken out during the marriage to secure Loverboy's success. So that's why we saw her saying, I think she literally said, like, get a prenup. So the other piece that I thought was interesting unfolding on the show is it sounded like Amanda maybe didn't even know the extent of the debt that Kyle had taken out. They obviously were having a breakdown in communication. Their marriage was not doing well. That's, not spoiling the show for anyone who was watching, but Kyle was talking about the personal loans that he took out, and the way he was describing it was as if Amanda had no idea. I mean, that's just forget prenup, no prenup, whatever the laws are. Like, that's a basic breakdown in communication in the marriage that the two of you aren't even sitting down to have those conversations about what the heck is going on with your finances. So those conversations are important as well.
Yeah, my aunt, when her husband passed away, they were one of like the wealthier of the siblings, and all of their kids always just got whatever they want because they just went to mom and dad. And when he passed away, they found out that he had taken out loans upon loans upon loans because he was just that generous type who just like doled out cash and took everyone out to dinner and just would fly everyone on vacations. And she didn't even know how to access her checking account because he took care of all the finances. I mean, it's like, old Moroccan woman. So it was just like insane. She didn't even know where to start. She had zero control of anything. And he had taken out loans and now he passed away and it was on her to be liable for them now.
Yeah, I mean, definitely knowing the law in the state that you're in and how important it is, to know the rules of the road before you start driving, and how those laws applies to you. Also, I mean, getting a prenup, if that ship has sailed for a party like Kyle and Amanda, let's say they reconcile, a postnup would be another tool that they could use. It's never too late to have those conversations. Circling back to Alicia from Real Housewives of Rhode Island, she just sat her partner down in the most recent episode and said, hey, I want to talk to you about our finances. I want to know what's going on. I don't feel protected and I want to change our situation. And, they're a decade into their relationship. They have a child together, but it's not too late for her to sit down and tell her partner, I'm not comfortable with how I feel in this situation and I want to change something. So,
That's like such a beautiful lesson, especially for our generation. I think we saw our grandmothers and our mothers not really get fair sort of representation or assistance or abilities to go through life, right? Like, when did we get a credit card as women? Not to go totally off topic, right? It was like 1974 that we were allowed to get credit cards. Like, we couldn't have
yeah.
our own credit card. We couldn't even have our own mortgage at some point. Like, that's crazy to me. And so, yeah, so I'm so happy that we're able to have these type of conversations and open them up, and so people can educate themselves and realize that they should get protected. It's just so important to be educated. Um,
Yeah, it's so important to have those conversations with your partner, to, lean on the people in your life for advice, whether that be your matrimonial attorney, your trust and estates attorney, your financial advisor. Like, especially as women, we have to build a team and consult with that team regularly. I think one of the saddest pieces of watching this whole thing unfold on Summer House is Amanda had a really great team in Sierra, and she had a great friend, these conversations with Sierra and Paige and these girls who were really building her up and telling her, you know, assert yourself, stick up for yourself, you're worthy, you're valuable. And now she doesn't have one of those friendships anymore. So that's really sad to have watched that unfold. But now we all get to see what happens with this divorce again, if it's a divorce at all. Neither one of them, the current status of Amanda and Kyle's relationship is that they are separated. They're
all
not
right.
divorced, and neither one of them has even filed that we know of.
TBC.
TBD.